Today we're learning about utopias versus dystopias in literature. So the questions we're asking ourselves is, what is the difference between a dystopia and a utopia? And what are the major traits of dystopian literature, and how do you recognize them? Your goal should be to distinguish between dystopias and utopias in literature. First, we'll start with a utopia. A utopia is a place that is ideally perfect with perfect laws, customs, and conditions. So some of the characteristics are as follows. People have complete freedom. The government listens to them. People are happy and content. And people have lots of free time and don't work that much. Many of the evils of the world are overcome. So things like disease, crime, even sadness in general don't exist in this world. So in utopian literature, every aspect of society in some way is perfect. Some examples are Gulliver's Travel. So in this world, this man kind of leaves England and he goes off into this society of tiny people and kind of learns about how in different ways that society is perfect. A Modern Utopia by H.G. Wells imagines a world where literally everything within that society has reached perfection, what that looks like. And then something even like Star Trek could be considered to be a utopia, because we have an advanced society that has laws made specifically for the people. And you can see that in Star Trek, most of the people are working towards peace and happiness. It's not a true utopia because there are aspects of Star Trek. There are problems in Star Trek, right? It's not a perfect society. A dystopia is on the other end of the spectrum. A dystopia is a place that gives the illusion of a perfect society, but in reality is oppressive, seeks to control people, and makes them live in fear. So up front, it may seem like a utopia, but dystopians and dystopian literature represents an oppressive society. So what are some characteristics? People are taught their world is perfect, and the truth is concealed from them. So the people in power are lying. Freedom of thought, speech, and media are limited. So characters have to really adjust how they think and speak. The government orders people around and controls them. They might control the characters even down to when they wake up, when they eat, where they work. People fake happiness or are depressed. So there aren't many content characters, if any content characters, in these types of societies or in dystopias. People are usually poor and work all the time. So you see the main characters of these stories going through a lot of hardships. And then lastly, citizens try to conform. They don't want to stick out, because in these oppressive societies, sticking out means that you're not following the rules, right? Individuality is bad, because people live in fear. Some famous examples is The Giver. The Giver starts out where it seems like a perfect society, but as we get further and further along, it seems like some of these perfect rules actually lead to oppressive parts of that society. 1984 is a famous dystopian piece of literature. Big Brother is watching you. That's a term that comes from this book. It imagines a world where every second of every day you are being observed. So the main character in the story is observed all of the time and has to deal with that. And it kind of goes over the consequences of that type of society. And then, of course, the Hunger Games. They made the whole trilogy, and it's about a society that up front, different parts of that society have aspects of a utopia, but really, if you look at kind of some of the things that they do, it breaks down and it's clear that it's a dystopia. People are not content, not happy. What do utopias and dystopias have in common? So if you're going to distinguish between the two, you need to know some commonalities. So both utopias and dystopian literature typically they're used to criticize, satirize, or speculate on real-world problems. So even though in this perfect world, or this really imperfect world, it seems like there's a bunch of problems with that, well, it's really reflecting the real world. Oftentimes a dystopia specifically, ironically, is the result of society's attempt to create a perfect society. So a lot of the time authors are writing dystopian novels to show that perfection a lot of the time is very hard to attain. So hopefully you should use this information to move forward, and we're going to identify some of these pieces in literature.